Hey everybody, it's B with the Geek Battalion Vets here with my very first installment of our QRF series. That's right, the boys finally convinced me to earn my keep around here and contribute something other than making fun of Jimmy or reciting random obscure movie quotes. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, if you've listened to the podcast, then it should come as no surprise to you. We're going to talk about Star Wars. That's right. So people, both geeks and casual fans alike, ask me all the time, B, I like Star Wars movies and I love The Mandalorian. I'm excited about the upcoming live-action Ahsoka show, but I'm a well-adjusted adult and I can't get into cartoons. What do I need to know about her before the show starts? Well, first off, I'm sorry you live a sad, joyless existence. To misquote Tyler Durden, you are not your khakis. Watch some fucking cartoons. But not to worry, I'm here to help. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know before we all dive headfirst into Ahsoka, starting August 23rd on Disney+. Let's get it! Now, seeing how Ahsoka's story was told over multiple seasons of several different animated shows, a movie, some books, and probably a bunch of other things I'm forgetting about, there's a lot to cover. I'll do my best to keep the specific spoilers to a minimum, but hopefully if you're listening to this, you're either looking for a refresher to bring yourself back up to speed, or you really didn't give a shit to begin with. I'll cover the introduction a bit, but I will tell her story not the way that I watched it, but in a chronological order that hopefully makes sense. Now, my hardcore nerd homies all know that Ahsoka Tano is a female Togruta from the planet Chili. Togrutas are a humanoid species with two large horns on their head that drape down into three long head tails, one in the back and two in the front.
Giggity giggity.
You might remember Jedi Master Shakti from the prequels, or maybe even the Force Unleashed games. She's a Togruta too. We were first introduced to Ahsoka in the animated Clone Wars movie in 2008. Clone Wars movie was the cinematic release for the Cartoon Network's animated series of the same name. The movie was actually supposed to have been about a 3 to 4 episode arc of the show. When they showed it to George Lucas, he thought it seemed more like a movie than a TV show. Can't say that I really agree with him on that, but, to this day, Lucasfilm has yet to bring me in as a consultant. Hey, a guy can dream, can't he? Over the past 7 seasons of the Clone Wars, I've learned to appreciate the movie, but as I've said before on the podcast, my initial reaction after watching it in the theaters was not good. I thought Ahsoka might single-handedly be the death of the Star Wars franchise. Yeah, I hated her that much. Ahsoka was a child, and I despised the way she talked to Anakin and all of her atrocious nicknames that she came up with. How Sky Guy and R2 ever survived the edit is beyond me. Now, with all that being said, Ahsoka really grew on me, and her creator Dave Filoni gave her one of the greatest character arcs in all of Star Wars. Ahsoka is easily one of my favorite characters now, and I can't wait to see what's next for her. Before we get started here, I have to say that I didn't read the Ahsoka book. I know, I suck. It's on my list, alright? In my defense, I read it like a 4th grade level and there aren't any pictures in it, okay? So, now let's talk about some cartoons, baby! We didn't get the origin of Ahsoka Tano until 2022 with the release of the short animated show Tales of the Jedi. Seriously, the episodes are like 10 to 15 minutes long. You could watch the whole season in less than 2 hours, but don't worry, I'll give you the cliff notes. Anyway, the first episode of the show, titled Life and Death, takes us to Ahsoka's homeworld of Shili on the day she was born, but for whatever reason cuts to like a year later. It is apparently a Togruta tradition to take your 1-year-old baby hunting. So Ahsoka's mom straps her in a ruck, takes her out in the field to kill some space deer. Ahsoka's mom goes into this deep monologue about the circle of life or some crap like that. While they're field stripping Bambi, then this huge saber-toothed tiger looking thing comes out of nowhere, and instead of viciously mauling the kid right in front of her mother, it just picks up baby Ahsoka by the diaper and runs away with her. Now, this episode wasn't my favorite, but it does show how strong in the Force Ahsoka is, as she is able to use the Jedi mind trick to convince the tiger to return her to her family without any training at all. And when she returns, the family is so overjoyed to get little Ahsoka back in one piece that they do what any loving parent would do and immediately call the Jedi Order to give their baby away to a bunch of weird, mysterious space wizards. Something that is probably of significance, and I think it's pretty likely that it'll come up again down the road, is that at the end of the episode, yes, this is a spoiler, I'm going to spoil stuff. Ahsoka is picked up by Jedi Master Plo Koon and taken to Coruscant. I think this is important because Plo Koon is Dave Filoni's favorite Jedi. He's always talking about him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he figures out a way to sneak him into the show, even though he died during Order 66. Or did he? Bum bum bum! The next major event in Ahsoka's history is her very first introduction in the 2008 animated feature film, The Clone Wars. The Clone Wars movie starts off with Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi on one of their barely mentioned misadventures during the war, this time at the Battle of Christophsis. After some hijinks with our clone friend Commander Cody and Anakin's new executive officer Captain Rex, Anakin learns that Obi-Wan requested a new Padawan learner, as Anakin is now a full Jedi Knight. But unbeknownst to Anakin, the Jedi Council has other plans and decides to assign the Padawan to him instead. The movie has some great moments of Anakin doing ridiculous things, taking unnecessary risks, and generally just being super reckless. Ahsoka quickly learns that her new master is a total badass and starts doing some of the same dumb shit. Anakin and Ahsoka have a big fight with Asajj Ventress along the way, but in the end, they both save the day and rescue Jabba the Hutt's kid from Count Dooku. Oh yeah, Asajj Ventress is this badass fallen Jedi Padawan / Dathomirian witch who's the apprentice of Count Dooku. She has a huge role in the series, but that's all intel for another day. I'm on the clock here, people. The Clone Wars movie gave us a lot of Ahsoka's annoying side, but they also did a really great job of showcasing how skilled she is at combat and really laid down the groundwork for the relationship with Ahsoka and Captain Rex, as well as the other clones. I would guess that some of that would probably be mentioned in the live-action show too. Now, 2008 also brought us the debut of the Clone Wars animated series, and with it, in my humble opinion, some of the best Star Wars stories to date. Ahsoka was featured heavily throughout the entire series, but a handful of episodes really stood out as major moments in the development of her character. Now, if you're a real Star Wars fan and you haven't watched the Clone Wars, I can't tell you enough that you're missing out. Yes, it's a cartoon and it was marketed towards children to sell toys, but the stories are fantastic. Ahsoka experiences everything from the horrors and loss of war to training insurgents to overthrow the Confederate-controlled systems, and some super exciting topics like banking deregulation, politics, and she even manages to fall in love a couple of times along the way. In Season 2 of The Clone Wars, the 6th episode titled Weapons Factory, we're introduced to Ahsoka's friend and fellow Jedi Padawan, Barriss Offee. Barriss is a Marillion female, roughly the same age as Ahsoka, and trained by Jedi Master Luminary Unduli. The episode brings us back to Geonosis, you know, that bug planet from Attack of the Clones where they have a big droid fight in that arena and, you know, everything looks like it's made of vaginas. No, I'm serious. Go back and look at the architecture. They're everywhere. Ahsoka and company go on a mission to shut down this critical separatist tank factory, which of course they succeed. Now, the episode was fine, but I think it was really just a vehicle to introduce Barriss Offee, who plays a big part in Ahsoka's story in a couple seasons down the road. I'm really skimming through some other episodes here, but just know that Ahsoka has a long history with the Mandalorians, and more specifically, Lady Bo-Katan Kryze. Bo-Katan actually slapped her on the ass in one episode. Ahsoka was like 15 years old. It's really weird. Anyway, I digress. Another Mandalorian tie that's probably worth mentioning is one of Ahsoka's love interests, who was the nephew of the Prime Minister of Mandalore during the time, who curiously looks a lot like Obi-Wan. We later find out that Obi-Wan and Bo-Katan's sister, Duchess Satine, were slapping cheeks at some point, and ever since then, the internet has wildly speculated that Corgi is Kenobi's bastard son. Corgi Kenobi. Let that simmer in your craw for a minute. I did mention this was a kid's show, right? Ahsoka's chronological story jumps back to the Tales of the Jedi show, where in the 5th episode, titled Practice Makes Perfect, she's being graded on her lightsaber combat skills by fighting a bunch of droids. Ahsoka nails this test, but realizes that her master is none too pleased as he thinks the test was weak and that any student of his should be capable of much, much more. Anakin then comes up with his own test with Rex and the boys and proceeds to stun the crap out of Ahsoka for like 1,000,001 tries. Ahsoka hates this test because she thinks that Anakin is being too hard on her, but she soon understands that Anakin truly has her best intentions at heart, as mastering his test turns out to be the exact training Ahsoka needed to survive Order 66. Oh, yeah, kind of a spoiler maybe? She survived Order 66. I mean, if you know she's getting her own live-action show, right, you should probably have guessed that. Moving on. Back we go to the Clone Wars series again, where Ahsoka's story really starts to heat up. In the final arc of Season 5, Ahsoka goes on a little detective mission with Anakin, where they investigate a terrorist attack on the Jedi Temple. The gang follows the clues to the wife of a maintenance worker killed in the attack, who turns out to be some anti-war nutjob willing to sacrifice her own husband by filling him full of nanodroids carrying explosives and blows him up for batshit crazy cause. The series then goes full on The Fugitive as Ahsoka gets framed for the death of the worker's wife during an interrogation. Ahsoka goes on the run and Anakin and the clones hunt her down. Ahsoka ends up reaching out to her friend Barriss Offee for help and even joins forces with Count Dooku's former apprentice, Asajj Ventress. Here's another spoiler for you. As it turns out, Barriss is the traitor and frames Ahsoka for the whole plot. Ahsoka eventually gets arrested, expelled from the Jedi Order, and immediately goes on trial for her crimes. Anakin goes rogue, skips the trial, and goes straight after Barriss. After severely violating Barriss' civil rights, Anakin coerces a confession to save Ahsoka, just as the court finds her guilty. Now, normally I would demand that you watch the rest of this episode because it really is one of the best moments in the series. However, I think it's nearly impossible to go on without spoiling the decision that Ahsoka makes at the end. Last chance. Still listening? Alright, you've been warned. It's a spoiler. After Anakin proves Ahsoka's innocence, the Jedi Council decides that Ahsoka's courage and determination throughout the entire incident proves that she has passed her Jedi trials and is welcomed back into the Order and promoted to the rank of Jedi Knight. Ahsoka, feeling betrayed by the Council for not believing her, tells them to pound sand and decides to walk away from the Order. This absolutely wrecks Anakin and delivers a major blow to his faith and confidence in the Jedi. Like I said, this scene is one of the best in all of Star Wars, but wipe the tears, we still got more to go. Now, I have zero evidence to back up this claim, but when Filoni came back with Season 7 of the Clone Wars in 2020, I'm convinced that his live-action Ahsoka show was already in development. I think he came back and finished the series how he intended, but also for the purpose of bringing Ahsoka into The Mandalorian and then eventually rolling her into her own show. The final season of the series almost entirely featured Ahsoka, save for about 3 or 4 episodes that were for the purpose of launching Filoni's other new animated show, The Bad Batch. Ahsoka's first arc of the season introduces her to the Martez sisters, Rafa and Trace. This Martez sisters arc wasn't my favorite, but showed us what Ahsoka did after she left the Order and gave some great commentary about how people in the galaxy viewed the Jedi, contrasted by how Ahsoka thought the galaxy viewed them. This storyline also brought Ahsoka back together with her once rival, Lady Bo-Katan Kryze. Bo-Katan then recruits Ahsoka to help her and her forces retake Mandalore, which is now controlled by Darth Maul. Yeah, that Darth Maul. Spoiler, he's not dead, and there's a great Clone Wars arc where after Maul comes back, he hooks up with Bo-Katan's former crew, the Mandalorian group the Death Watch, and secretly takes over all the major crime syndicates to form the Shadow Collective, or Crimson Dawn as it's seen in the movie Solo. The formation of the Shadow Collective divided Death Watch, especially after Maul challenged their leader Pre Vizsla, voiced by none other than Jon Favreau, for the throne and defeated him. Half left with Lady Kryze, and the other became Maul DeLoreans. See what I did there? Maul DeLorean. I know. Let's just get through this. So, Bo-Katan enlists Ahsoka to reach out to Anakin Skywalker in hopes of recruiting the Republic to help reclaim Mandalore. These last 4 episodes of the season are my all-time favorites and really must be watched if you consider yourself any kind of fan at all. I won't flat out spoil these for you because they are truly some of the best Star Wars stories there is, but I will sum it up for you in saying that the final episodes happen at the exact same time as Revenge of the Sith. If you ever wonder what Anakin and Obi-Wan were doing right before they raced off to save Chancellor Palpatine, these episodes are exactly that. Now, with that being said, obviously Anakin and Obi-Wan don't go to Mandalore to help, but instead they send Captain Rex and half of Anakin's 501st Legion with Ahsoka to go after Maul. Ahsoka ultimately captures Maul and Bo-Katan takes back Mandalore, but with a temporary, wink wink, occupation of Republic forces. While en route to Coruscant with Maul in tow, Order 66 happens. I won't ruin it, but Ahsoka manages to rewire Captain Rex's brain and they ultimately escape in a very tragic finale to the series. If Lucas was still on board as a showrunner, he definitely would have made this final 4 episodes of the Clone Wars series into a movie. And I think Filoni knew this and treated them as such. Ray Park, the actor that played Darth Maul in The Phantom Menace, actually came back to reprise the role using motion capture technology for all the lightsaber fight scenes in the animation. It really was amazing, and I love it. Ahsoka's Clone Wars era ends with the finale episode of Tales of the Jedi. Again, I didn't read the E.K. Johnston's book, Ahsoka, but apparently he tells a very similar story to this episode, but in far greater detail. The finale of the first season, titled Resolve, starts with Ahsoka sneaking into the crowd on Naboo for the funeral of Padme Amidala, aka Mrs. Anakin Skywalker. Ahsoka has a run-in with Bail Organa, the adoptive father of Princess Leia, and he fails to convince her to join his little secret society that eventually becomes the Rebel Alliance. Bail gives Ahsoka a burner phone and tells her to call him if she ever changes her mind. Ahsoka then sets off on her own, trying to lay low as the Empire expands and tightens its grip on the galaxy. And it doesn't take long before Ahsoka uses the Force to save someone, outing herself as a Jedi. Some dickhead farm kid then rats her out to the Imperials, and then this really cool Inquisitor, voiced by the legend himself, Clancy Brown, shows up and just starts murdering everyone until Ahsoka reveals herself. In case you're unaware, Inquisitors are these Force-wielding assassins, mostly former Jedi, working for Vader and the Emperor to hunt down and kill all the remaining Jedi that survived Order 66. Anyway, Ahsoka has her own John Wick moment.
But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back!
And takes out the Inquisitor in epic fashion and saves the day. This leads Ahsoka to contact Bail Organa and ultimately joins the fight against the Empire. So after Disney acquired Lucasfilm and the keys to the Star Wars universe in 2012, the Clone Wars series was canceled on Cartoon Network and later finished on Netflix and Disney+. Filoni wasted no time in cranking out another animated series, and in 2014, the Star Wars Rebels debuted on Disney XD. Now this show, unlike the Clone Wars, was almost entirely made up of Filoni-created characters. So rest assured that the bulk of them will show up in Filoni's live-action series. The show revolves around the crew of the Ghost, piloted by Twi'lek Harrisandula, her partner, the space cowboy slash pirate slash former Jedi Kanan Jarrus, Mandalorian Sabine Wren, their muscle Zeb Aurelios, and the most murderous droid in all of Star Wars, Chopper. Their story starts out on Lothal, an Outer Rim territory being suffocated by Imperial occupation. On Lothal, the crew meets the Force-sensitive street rat, Ezra Bridger, who joins the crew and later becomes Kanan's Padawan learner. Like I said before, this show is all Filoni, so you can guarantee that the storylines from this show will almost certainly pop up in the Ahsoka show. Ahsoka has a very minimal role in the series, but has this huge run-in with Vader and comes back later on in quite possibly the biggest twist of all Star Wars. This is an epic spoiler. I will crush your hopes and dreams with this if you haven't seen it. So, now's your chance. Walk away. Okay, we're still in. Ahsoka actually dies in this series. But I'm not going to tell you how. I'm going to let you watch it and figure it out for yourself. But she does come back. Another major character in this show is Grand Admiral Thrawn, or if you really want to get sweaty about it, Mithranurodo, a blue-skinned, red-eyed Chiss Imperial who was first introduced to fans in the Timothy Zahn Heir to the Empire Expanded Universe books. Thrawn is confirmed to be the next big bad in the Star Wars universe and will appear in Ahsoka. Again, I'm summing this up as quick as I can, but the series ends with Ezra removing Thrawn from the board by sending both of them off into the unknown regions of space. The last scene of the finale, titled Family Reunion and Farewell, ends around the time of the fall of the Empire and Return of the Jedi, with Ahsoka coming back for Sabine for the purpose of finding Ezra Bridger. This scene is almost verbatim what we've seen in the trailers for Ahsoka, so it's not a stretch to guess that this is likely the plot of at least the first season. Our first look at the live-action debut of Ahsoka is in Season 2 of The Mandalorian, Chapter 13, The Jedi. Now, fanboys the world over have been dreamcasting Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka for years after a photo circulated of her and Anakin Skywalker himself, Hayden Christensen, together. Dawson herself very publicly jumped in on the campaign as she claimed to be a huge fan of the Clone Wars series. And in 2020, Filoni gave the fans what they wanted and she did not disappoint. This episode takes us to the planet of Corvus, which is ruled by the evil ex-Imperial magistrate Morgan Elsbeth. Elsbeth hires Mando to hunt down the Jedi, which kind of backfires as Mando was seeking out Ahsoka anyways to help train Grogu. Ahsoka refuses to train Grogu and sets the stage for the return of Luke Skywalker. Ahsoka and Mando team up to take down the evil occupation of Corvus, and Ahsoka and Elsbeth do a big fight, during which it's revealed that Elsbeth works for Grand Admiral Thrawn and knows exactly how to find him. The next time we see Ahsoka is during The Mandalorian Season 2.5, the Book of Boba Fett. In Chapter 6, titled From the Desert Comes a Stranger, we find Ahsoka hanging out with Luke and Grogu at his new Jedi Academy when Mando comes to visit. Ahsoka tries to keep Mando from seeing Grogu again and flat out tells him, quote, perhaps they'll see each other again. So you know it's coming. So there it is, over a decade's worth of Ahsoka condensed into one tight little QRF. Now that you're all caught up, what should we expect from the Ahsoka show? If you're anything like me, you're already way tired of hearing me talk. I'm sure the boys and I will get into it on the podcast eventually as well, but here's my rapid fire expectations. We'll start with the characters that we know are in the show from what we've seen in the trailers. Grand Admiral Thrawn. He's definitely in the show, but I wouldn't be shocked if he isn't revealed until the finale or towards the end of the first season. I could probably say the same for Ezra Bridger, since I'm guessing the plot is them looking for him. Thrawn is the heir apparent, yeah, pun intended, moving forward as the main antagonist for Star Wars. However, I'm guessing we'll get more from Morgan Elsbeth or Ray Stevenson's character Baylan Skoll or his sidekick Shin Hati. Maybe even an Inquisitor or two will step up for the bad guys to start things off at least. Sabine Wren. The trailers are heavily implying that Sabine might be an apprentice to Ahsoka. Whether that means she's becoming a Jedi or something else remains to be seen. I'm really growing on the idea of her becoming a Jedi though, just saying. The Ghost Crew. Hera, Chopper, Zeb, and Jason will likely be essential to the storyline. Remember, this is Filoni's show. Even he's come out and said it's basically Rebels Season 5. Marek the Inquisitor. In one of the trailers, we saw Ahsoka fighting an Inquisitor, which Filoni came out recently saying this Inquisitor's name is Marek. Now, if you believe the internet, there's rampant speculation that Marek's armor is similar to Starkiller's Sith armor at the end of the Force Unleashed game. I don't know about any of this, but what I do know is that Filoni has already used the name Marek as a wolf-like dog companion for the bounty hunter Embo during the Clone Wars series. I also know that Filoni and Sam Witwer, Starkiller himself, are great friends, and Sam has voiced dozens of characters throughout all the Star Wars show. Do I want Starkiller? Yes. Yes, I do. Will we get him? I'm willing to bet probably not. But I do think that Sam Witwer will definitely be part of this show somehow, some way. Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati. I'm guessing these guys are probably the main antagonists for the first season. No clue what's in store for them, but I'm really excited to see him. Really bummed about Stevenson's passing, and I hope they give his character a decent out. Also, in case you didn't know, Skoll and Hati are wolves from Norse mythology. If you don't know it by now, Dave Filoni is obsessed with wolves. He puts them in everything in every possible way. We actually see both of the Norse mythology wolves in the mural that Sabine's touching at the end of the trailer. Expect a healthy serving of that throughout. Now the characters we don't know about. I'll start with the OG Star Wars trilogy. Luke Skywalker. My gut tells me Luke probably won't make an appearance this season. But seeing how Mark Hamill has come out recently about how he doesn't think these Luke stories need to be told and thinks the character should be recast, I'm guessing he isn't happy with the look of things or maybe the way they're currently using him. Maybe Filoni has something in the works to fix that. Princess Leia. I'm leaning towards a no here, but if they can pull it off well, I'd love to see it. I have no insight, but I think Carrie Fisher seemed like the type that would want her character to go on. Han Solo and Chewbacca. I really have no idea. There were rumors that Harrison Ford was returning in some way, shape, or form, but I think it would also be cool to give Alden Ehrenreich another shot. He'll never be Harrison, but I loved him as Han in Solo. As for the Wookiee, probably not without Han. Boba Fett and Fennec Shand. I think it's a long shot, but I'll take all the Boba I can get. the Mandalorian Din Djarin, Grogu, or Bo-Katan? I would bet the farm on it. Not sure how, but at least one of them will jump in here somewhere. Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm really hoping they do some flashback scenes with the three of them back in the Clone Wars. The Kenobi series really gave us a taste, but seeing them all decked out in that Clone Wars era armor would definitely move my needle, if you know what I'm saying. Captain Rex, Commander Cody, or another clone. Tamura Morrison is currently listed as part of the cast, but in what capacity I don't know. I think we're all assuming he'll be back as Captain Rex, but I would love to see some other notable clone show up. Also, to do so, they're going to have to do something about the enhanced aging. This was a huge plot line in the Karen Traviss Republic Commando book series, but as of yet in the cartoons or any other stories that I'm aware of, no one has really even mentioned it. Rex and the boys would be in like their 80s or 90s by the time the story takes place. Sequel characters. I think this is highly likely. I know I bag on their sequels regularly, but I'm fine with this, and I fully expect someone to show up. Just do something to make them better. Wild card. My second favorite space pirate of all time, Hondo Ohnaka. Because why the hell not? Well, I think that about covers it. Everything you need to know about Ahsoka. What do you think? Did I leave anything out? Are you as excited as I am about this? I'd love to hear all your thoughts and expectations as we all prepare to geek out on August 23rd. Hit us up on our socials at Geek BN Vets. That's Geek Bravo November Vets on Twitter, Instagram, and even TikTok. And don't forget about our email. That's geekbattalionvets@gmail.com. As always, don't forget to check out all of our veteran service organization links that you can find on all of our socials. Take care of your left and your right. The Geek Battalion has your six. Deuce.